The golden period of ancient India was up to about 7th century of the current era. They were great empires, very, very big empires, uh, covering almost the entire peninsula. And one of the greatest kings was Ashoka the Great, 200 years, 300 years before Christ, just after or at the time of Alexander. And he was a great conqueror of his time. But at one stage, there was a great fight in the state of Odisha, and hundreds of people were killed, and then he renounced his kingdom and became like a monk. So again, that tradition you see of renunciation. But around 300 years of the current era, when Genghis Khan and the hordes in Huns were spreading from Mongolia all over Asia, they conquered, Europe they conquered, they also came to India. They were stopped at the Indian border, but the Indian kings became weak. While fighting with them, they became weak in the 3rd, 4th, 5th century AD, and then the decline of Indian great empires started. But that time the literature was flourishing, architecture was flourishing, poetry was flourishing. It was a great time, astronomy was flourishing. The zero was invented in India, it is said. The 1 to 9, what we see in Europe, it is called Arabic numerals, but actually they were creations of Indian intellectuals. They were brought to Arab lands by travelers, and from Arabia they went to Europe. So these 1 to 9 numerals are called Arabic numerals, but they are actually emanated from India. From 8th to 11th century, there was a great fragmentation of Indian empires after the Huns had destroyed the biggest empires. And so we didn't have a strong center. There were large number of kingdoms, emperors ruling over their own areas, but not a very strong center. And at that time also the arts and the architecture and literature and poetry flourished, because India was very, very prosperous. India was prosperous because it was very fertile, the land was very fertile, and cotton was being exported from India all over Central Asia up to Europe, and spices from the state of Kerala mostly, where our Professor Girish comes from. Pepper and cardamom and all kinds of spices were being exported first to Africa and then to Europe. At that time also India had a strong cultural influence in Southeast Asia. I will come to that later and tell you about the linkages between India and Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Angkor Wat, Bali, etc. From 12th to about 15th century, because the center was weak, India came under the influence of Muslim Islamic invaders coming from Central Asia, from Afghanistan and from Iran. So from about 12th century to 16th century, Delhi, the capital of India, was under the domination of first Central Asians and then Mughals, who also came from present day Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Iran area. After that, the biggest turn in India's history was because of the discovery of the sea route to India by Vasco da Gama in 1498. From India, from about 5th or 6th century AD, a lot of spices were being exported. In England and Europe, to preserve meat, they used pepper, because at that time there were no refrigerators. So if you had a lot of pepper in the meat, it did not rot easily. And the route for export of pepper, sorry. My God, I've lost it. Yeah, I'm trying to use the laser. Yeah, got it. So, yeah. So the route for spices from southern part of India and even further east from Indonesia and other parts of Asia was to Africa. Here, Zanzibar and East Africa, and then by land route to North Africa and through Mediterranean, etc., up to Europe. And the center of that trade in Europe was Venice. And that's why the merchants of Venice were the most prosperous, because they used to have all the imports by the Silk Route from China and spices from India. And that's why the book of Shakespeare, you would have read The Merchants of Venice. But in 15th century, early 15th century, there was a lot of political disturbance in North Africa. There were a lot of wars and fights going on, and this trade route was disrupted. And the price of pepper in Europe rose from 2 shilling a pound to about 16 shilling a pound. And then the European merchants thought of finding a route, a sea route, a direct route to India for trade, bypassing Africa. And of course, all of you know, 1492, Vasco da Gama started off for India. He at that time had planned that from Europe he'll start circumnavigate the globe and come to India. At that time nobody knew that there is a whole continent of Americas in between. So the discovery of Americas was accidental, and Vasco da Gama was actually trying to find a sea route to India. But later in 1498, Christopher Columbus in 1492. In 1498, Vasco da Gama ultimately found the sea route to India with this Cape of Good Hope. He came up to here. After that, he didn't know the route. So there were some Arab sailors, and he got those Arab sailors and found that route. So that was a absolutely a new development in the history of India, which brought India directly in contact with Europe and European powers. And that brought in, of course, technology and new influences over a period of time. So the present day India, it has a very syncretic culture. The foundation, of course, is old Indian foundation of Hindu, Buddhist kind of ways and beliefs, and over that there is Islamic input. About 12% of the population in India is Muslim. Then we have a Christian heritage, European cultural heritage, that also from about 17th century it was becoming more and more important in the country. And the most important thing which we are very proud of is that all these cultural influences, all these religious beliefs have space in India to live, to flourish, to coexist side by side. And that is something which is rare if you see in the world around yourself.